Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. My name is Martyn Warwick. We're here in Phoenix in Arizona at ETSI NFV meeting number 8. And busy it is. And I'm talking with Rajesh Rajamani, who is Senior Product Marketing Manager of Spirent Communications. Rajesh, welcome. You are a test and measurement company, as anyone in most of the industry will be well aware, but some of the audience who are watching this may not know. So tell us briefly at first about Spirent, how old the company is and what it does.
Yeah. Spirent is decades old. It is a test and measurements leader. We specialize in validating network equipment, wireless infrastructure, service provider infrastructure, and handsets. So all the way across from the access point of the network through the edge and core of the network to end customers and data centers. We help validate one piece of the network at a time or the entire network at the same time.
Thank you. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty of things. Spirent has, as we know, a lot of experience in test and measurement. How do you use that experience on something as new and as different as testing for NFV solutions? Obviously there are a different set of challenges in testing functions that are virtualized and different places where performance and functionality could be impacted. What are those?
Sure. First off, we bring to the table a lot of expertise when it comes to testing for availability, testing for reliability, testing for scale, and testing the ability of systems to withstand impairments or withstand disasters. So in some sense, a virtual world doesn't change a lot of the needs for testing.
Sure.
So off the bat, we bring a wealth of experience that we've developed over the years, over the decades, with key vendors and service providers. That said, we also have relationships with these key vendors and service providers, and they are the same people who are also evolving from the traditional physical appliance-driven world into the virtual world. Right? And we already are trusted partners for a lot of them. So we bring relationships, we bring our partnerships, and we bring testing expertise and test methodologies to the table. That said, the new virtualized world has a number of new components in it. A few of them being the management and orchestration systems, the cloud management pieces, and the virtual infrastructure pieces. Right? So in addition to testing traditional network functions, we are expanding our own scope to validate all of these new moving parts that kind of threaten to make these systems, unreliable, and that's where we come into the picture to ensure reliability. Okay,
thank you. Now, at the moment, there isn't any normative spec for NFV. We're just moving from the informative, actually the normative phase begins this very day. So obviously, by definition, there are no specifications yet. How difficult do you think it's going to be to test various parts of the architecture components than classic VNFs? It must be a big difference between that and the old-fashioned virtual network.
Yes, true. And like you said, it starts today. So a number of new work items have been approved for phase 2. And one of them is something that Spirent submitted, but we will work with other test vendors to develop, which is the new pre-deployment and post-deployment testing methodologies of virtual infrastructures and virtual components. So this requires a very concerted, cohesive approach where the test vendor community works with service providers and vendors over the next few months in this phase 2. And as these new interfaces are being laid out between virtual network functions managers and virtual infrastructure manager and the Mano components and VNFs, a lot of these need testing, need new ways of testing, and new ways in which they could fail, for which we need testing. So that's the work that we are planning, and we've been from day one been attached to other companies who are needing testing of these components.
Okay, thank you. So what are the challenges then, do you think, overall? And what is Spirent doing to help ETSI get to the stage where testing is actually part of the spec? I know you've covered that in part just now, but let's talk about that in relation to the fact that these days no one company can do everything by itself. And one of the things that is very evident about NFV and SDN to a considerable extent, is the fact that companies are working in strategic partnerships on specific projects. And I know you are working with HP, so can you talk to us about that?
Yes. So we have actually joined the HP's Open NFV ecosystem. We are a strategic partner, and in fact, our test equipment, there's a major presence of our test equipment in their labs, and likewise, we use HP-powered servers to build our own test labs. So both HP and Spirent are committed to NFV, and we are also part of other ecosystems, such as the one that is led by Intel, and we participate in a lot of open forums too. The one thing that is evident in this second phase of NFV is that the community is going to encourage openness, whether it is in participating in OpenStack or OPNFV initiatives. Spirent, not only are we going to build our products using open source components, we are planning to give back to the community also.
So Rajesh, when do you think we're going to see sizable deployments that are tested and validated and deployed in a carrier's network based upon NFV principles? How far away is that?
So 2014 was the year of POCs. More than 25 POCs were kind of legitimized by NFV, ETSI NFV as being important to the community, and we had a great success in all of them. Right? So we expect the next phase is that the industry move from POCs to actual deployments. I don't believe we'll see a big bang deployment where overnight people rip out their existing networks and replace NFV, but they're going to start with pockets. In some cases, the pockets may mean going into a new country and deploying a service in a new country, which is completely on a virtual platform. In other cases, it may be just a part of the network, potentially virtualization of the EPC or the IMS. Yeah. In some other cases, it could be customers who are looking to the home environment and virtualization of the CPEs. Whatever be a specific carrier or provider's strategy or even tactics, they're going to possibly start small and then gradually grow it. And we expect that to start happening in 2015.
So pretty soon?
Pretty soon.
Okay. Now then, let's move on to some more generalized challenges rather than problems, let's call them. There's been an awful lot of talk about standardization, and there are various standards bodies out there, ETSI being one, OPNFV being others, Open Cloud, OpenStack, etc., etc. There seem to be more and more standards bodies all the time. How do you get all of them to operate and cooperate together to produce the genuinely standardized open system that everybody wants, and particularly the operators and the telcos want?
And the greatest example to answer the question is ETSI NFV, okay? Because they have made it very clear that they are never going to reinvent a standard, and they're sticking to it, which means they rely on other standards bodies where applicable, and where there are gaps, they come out with the requirements. And that's the kind of collaboration without duplication, right? That's going to make us all succeed. Not only are they not redoing the standards, but they're encouraging openness at every interface, okay? Which means publish it, make it quick, do it quickly, but bring people along, make it open so that we can have a true multi-vendor environment wherever possible. So to that extent, I don't feel that the telecom community is burdened by excessive standards bodies. In fact, they've organized it in such a way that they lean on standards bodies and yet make fast progress.
Given that standardization, the next problem along the line is that one of genuine interoperability. They go hand in hand, obviously. So are you hopeful? Do you believe it will happen that the products that the manufacturers are bringing forward at the behest of the carriers and the telcos are genuinely going to be both open and fully interoperable?
That's what I hope. And in some pockets it will be a challenge, but in others less of a challenge. And I feel hugely encouraged by the fact that OpenStack is catching on as the cloud management system of choice. And there are so many other open projects going on, Open Compute included. Right? So at least we will have a strong orchestration system, a cloud management system that's open. And sure, I mean, there are hypervisor vendors who want to make their products open, vSwitch manufacturers coming out of open vSwitches and so on. So we will kind of go through a phase where gradually more and more components are being built in an open way, and yet there will be that same phase where some proprietary implementations of a few vendors have to kind of coexist.
Okay, now one of the major attractions and differences of the NFV approach, ETSI NFV approach, is that there are a large number of global operators who are part of the organisation. 37 now, I believe, is the number, and rising. Their input is central to everything that you do, because the operators, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, the operators were at the point where they don't want any more lock-in. They want their problem solving, or they'll go somewhere else, thank you very much. And that's lit a fuse under the vendor and manufacturing community in a way that I've not seen before, and I've been doing this for quite a while. Do you think there's a danger, we're back to this openness again, we've seen it happen, and I'm not talking about Spirent, I'm talking about the industry. There is the potential for a sort of almost Orwellian take on openness. Like in 1984, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. All systems are open, but some are more open than others. Do you think that's a danger?
Sure, right? In that, as everyone strives for openness, it is going to threaten a few vendors, perhaps a few big vendors. And that's where they will find other ways in which they add value. Right? And in some sense, you make interfaces open, you improve the agility of the industry, you bring more new players in. But then it's not just about selling these individual components or boxes, but selling value, right? Solving problems. It means you bring expertise. Expertise in deployment, expertise in putting solutions together, expertise in making sure things work. So to that end, I fully expect business models themselves to morph to these changing conditions. And that said, openness, I believe, is going to encourage in the end more agility, more innovation, perhaps bring a few new players into the fold. And it is going to make people become valuable in ways other than they've been traditionally bringing value in.
Briefly, a couple of final questions to you. They are interlinked. We've witnessed the end of phase one of MFV, the informative stage of it, when here's an idea, will it work, let's run with it, yes it does, etc. It seems that most people, it's exceeded their expectations, it's become very, very big very quickly. In your opinion, are there any intractable problems left over from phase one which have not yet been solved?
So they have actually done a very good job in terms of what's been accomplished, doing gap analysis, figuring out what are the open items that they have to close on, and that led to the creation of the work items for phase two. Right? So each and every item of phase two that's on the table, including things that Spirent is working on for testing methodologies, are to kind of complete and plug the holes that were in phase one. So to that end, we all know that this is an incredible start the industry made in the last 2 years, but the work is not done. We came to a great point, and now it's time to move on, and from the informative to the normative stage, identify holes, whether it is in terms of again reliability mechanisms, fault management mechanisms, or interfaces between the orchestration system and the infrastructure layers. They have actually done a very good job in analyzing these gaps and giving them the highest priority for phase two.
The one that I've been spoken about most to, is that seems to be concerning most people now, is the fact as you remove a bottleneck here, and like traffic out here, invariably it bottlenecks somewhere else. The thing that seems to be exercising people's thoughts at the moment is BSS and OSS. They think that's where the difficulty is going to come. Do you agree with that, and what's the solution?
Very much so. And I agree it's important. It's a difficult problem to solve because again, it involves decades of software that's written and already installed and operationalized. Right? And so how are we going to kind of add hundreds of links from there, or maybe replace chunks of it? because a lot of them are geared towards monolithic systems and management of monolithic systems. Now it's got to be cross-domain. It's got to take care of network functions, virtualized network functions, end-to-end services, and then even new concepts such as forwarding graphs and service chains. So that's where I expect a lot of action to happen, and that's where I expect a lot of software vendors to come in, who can mine data and analytics and intelligence from the network, and it come back down as policies for driving new services. So I see it as an area which will change, but I also see it as an area where there's a lot of potential for value-added services and new players to come in.
Well, we'll see what happens over the coming months and the coming meetings, 9, 10 and onwards. Until then, Rajesh Rajamani, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me over, it was great.